The call. The justification and authority for accepting idols and believing in their efficacy was that of tradition. Since their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers had done so, therefore they must follow them. Nonetheless, God was, for Abdul Muttalib, the great reality, and he was no doubt nearer to the religion of Ibrahim, alayhi salam, than most of his contemporaries. There were, and always had been, a few who maintained the full purity of Ibrahimic worship. They alone realized that far from being traditional, idol worship was an innovation, a danger to be guarded against. It only needed a longer view of history to see that Hubal was no better than the golden calf of the son of Israel. These Hunafas, as they called themselves, would have nothing to do with the idols, whose presence in Mecca they looked on as a pollution. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, began to experience powerful inward signs, besides those of which he had already been conscious. When asked about these, he spoke of true visions that came to him in his sleep, and he said that they were like the breaking of the light of dawn. He would go for spiritual retreats to a cave in Mount Hira. Retreat had been a traditional practice amongst the descendants of Ishmael, alayhi salam, so that they might have a period that was uncontaminated by the world of men. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, would take with him provisions and consecrate a certain number of nights to the worship of Allah. During these few years it often happened that after he had passed a street, the words "Peace be on thee, O Messenger of Allah," would come from a tree or a stone. Ramadan was the traditional month of retreat, and it was one night towards the end of Ramadan, in his 40th year, when he was alone in the cave, that there came to him an angel looking like a man. Before Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, his grandfather Abdul Muttalib used to spend a month every year in the cave of Hira. The Arabs used a lunar calendar. 1 month was the period from the rise of one crescent moon to another. Since it was a convenient way to tell time, most periods of seclusion would last for 1 lunar month. Some elderly Mahids also used to take resort in the neighboring caves of Hira for similar periods of times. In ancient India, when a person became a father, he used to isolate himself from his family. He would seclude himself in the jungle and ponder over the mysterious creation. Likewise, in Mecca, when some men were married or later had children, they used to isolate themselves from their families and go to the caves near Mecca to spend 1 month in solitude. Mecca is a city surrounded by several sand dunes and hills. The Arabs call hills Jabal. One of these hills is named Jabal Ainur, on which the cave Hira is situated. The distance from Hira to Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, house was about 1.5 kilometers. The cave of Hira seems to have been formed by the falling of huge stone slabs on 3 sides, which by their arrangement constitute the ceiling of the cave as well. The cave is high enough to easily allow a person to stand without his head touching the ceiling. The length of the cave is such that a person can lie there easily. The mouth of the cave is facing towards the Holy Kaaba, therefore, the Holy Kaaba can be seen from the cave. From here Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, could also view his house, which was near the Holy Kaaba. Contrary to the walls and ceiling, the floor of the cave is almost uniform, and by laying a sheet or mat, one can easily sit or lie here. To enter the cave today, one has to climb the steps carved out of stone alongside the hill. The Arabs hold that in the period of Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, these steps were not present. It was the habit of Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, to go to the cave of Hira in the month of Ramadan, because this was considered a holy month, and Arabians by tradition used to refrain from tribal fights and battles during this month. No one knows on what particular matters Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, pondered over in these periods of seclusion. One night Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was lying in the cave of Hira wearing his robe. He was drowsy, neither awake nor asleep, but rather drowsy, when the angel Jibril, masking in a human form, woke him up and showed him a piece of cloth. When Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, woke up, that person brought the silk cloth before his eyes, and said, "Iqra," i.e. read. Ibn Hasham has written that the silk cloth had 6 words inscribed on it, and the person who had woken Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, had light radiating from his body. The pressure of the hands of Jibril caused such a pain to Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, that he felt faint. However, he replied, I cannot read, or I shall not read. According to some Islamic scholars, that the person who had woken Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, from sleep repeated what he said 3 times. He received the same reply from Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, till he finally said, 1. Proclaim, or read, in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher, who created __. Surah Al-Alaq, v1. It is not imperative for one to be in the cave of Hira to discern the effects of this sentence. If one is well versed in Arabic, the impact of these words is even greater. Without acquiring a command over the Arabic language, it is difficult to appreciate Allah's oration and effect of this and other holy Quranic verses. The holy Quranic texts translated in English, French, German, Italian and many other languages do not move the hearts of their respective readers to the same degree as does Arabian version. Like the other revealed books, the Holy Quran also has a particular eloquence. Some verses have been repeated several times. Whereas to a French or an English reader, repetition of various sentences introduces redundancy. Anyone who understands Arabic and listens to or reads after the first verse of the 96th Surah, Al-Alaq, of the Holy Quran, instantly understands how deeply efficacious these words are. When Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, heard these words, he learnt them by heart and repeated them after Jibril. All Muslim scholars unanimously agree that by the words, read, or proclaim, in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher, is meant that the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, should take the name of Allah before reciting Allah's words. Hence, all the holy Quranic surahs except Surah Tawbah, begin by the words, in the name of Allah, most gracious, and most merciful. Surah Al-Alaq comprises of 19 verses. As affirmed by all the Muslim scholars, this is the first holy Quranic surah revealed upon the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. The first few verses of the surah go as 1. Proclaim, or read, in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher, who created __. 2. Created man, out of a mere clot of congealed blood. 3. Proclaim, and thy Lord is most bountiful. 4. He who taught the use of the pen, _. 5. Taught man that which he knew not. Surah Al-Alaq, v1-5. Islam from the very outset had stressed the need for acquisition of knowledge, which was to later become a 19th century Western phenomenon. Some Muslim scholars have even said that the acquisition of knowledge is one of the obligations of religion, just as a person's prayers and fasts. Jibril vanished soon after this revelation. Tibri has quoted Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu in his book that according to Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. When that angel in human form left, I tried to stand up, but my thighs had become weak and I could not stand for long. I had to sit down. After sitting for a while I felt enough strength in my knees to stand up. I left for home, but my shoulders were still trembling. I had hardly gone halfway, when I heard a voice saying, O Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, thou art the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, of Allah, I am Jibril. The voice was coming from the skies. I looked up and saw that Jibril was standing in the skies calling, O Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, thou art the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, of Allah. I am Jibril. My steps froze with fear. I could neither step forward nor move back. I turned my eyes away only to find Jibril there again. I looked to the other side to avoid him, but Jibril was there again. No matter where I looked, I found him there. He gradually disappeared in the skies. Afterwards, a feeling of weakness overtook me. It was with great effort that I reached home. Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu narrates. When Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, reached home, he looked pale. He was moving slowly towards me, taking the support of the wall. It all happened one night during the month of Ramadan. The feeling of distress that overpowered Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, should not be looked at with surprise. Listening to the word of Allah is surely a tremendous incident in itself. Anything that exceeds one's endurance makes one distressed. Nature has delineated perimeters for man. Human muscles and bones cannot endure stress beyond certain limits. So is the case with the spirit as well. To listen to an omnipotent existence who is beyond time and space, knows neither beginning nor end. It is far beyond all capabilities and potential of man. When we hear the rumble of an earthquake or thunder of lightning, we shudder with fear, although these are the noises of our surroundings and we are well versed by their physical laws. Thus we should not be surprised that Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, trembled when he heard the voice of Jibril relaying Allah's message, or that he was taken over by great fatigue after Jibril left. When Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu saw Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, in this condition, she assisted him by holding his hand and asked, "What has happened to you that you seem so fatigued, as if ill?" Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, narrated the whole incident and said, "I am gravely fearful." Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu asked, "But who are you afraid of?" There are two traditions about his, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, reply. Some scholars of Islam say that Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, told Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu, "I am overpowered by fear because the voice I heard has left me in this state. I find no calm, thus hide me somewhere or cover me with something." Some other historians including Ibn Hasham and Sahili write that Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, used to spend his time in Hira in contemplation. He was worried, whether the voice he heard had been his imagination. However, both groups agree that Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, asked Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu to cover him with something. She put a dithar, a mantle called galim, on him so that he could rest and calm his fears. However, Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, could neither rest nor sleep. It should not be surprising, if Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was later taken over by doubt in this situation. All those who have heard the voice of Allah for the first time have experienced the same. Some Arab historians say that Jibril reappeared the same night and brought the message of Allah to Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. While some others hold that Jibril reappeared 3 days after this incident and revealed the 74th Surah, Al-Mudaththir, of the Holy Quran upon Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. The first verse of the surah says, 1. O thou wrapped up in a mantle. 2. Arise and deliver thy warning. Al-Mudaththir, v1-2. The verses brought by Jibril were memorized by the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. He was then convinced that the words he was listening to had been from Allah. Later on, Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu took Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, to her paternal cousin Waraqah bin Nawfal, who was himself a Hanif, the class of people already described as opposed to idolatry and seekers of spiritual truth. When Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, and Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu entered the house of Waraqah bin Nawfal, he and his sister were reading the Gospel. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, explained the incident of the cave of Hira and the revelation of Mudaththir. Waraqah bin Nawfal said, verily it was the same law of Allah as had been revealed upon Musa, alayhi salam, Moses. According to some Muslim historians, Waraqah bin Nawfal also added, O Muhammad p.b.u.h. No doubt you are the same prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, whose arrival had been prophesied by Musa, alayhi salam, Moses. Afterwards, Waraqah bin Nawfal addressed Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, whatever you have brought to the people will make them your enemies. If I live long enough to help you against your enemy I shall gladly help. However, I fear you will be exiled or rejected when you proclaim your religion. What Waraqah bin Nawfal feared for the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was indeed deadly fears. To be banished by a tribe in Arabia was a serious and severe action. Whenever one was rejected by his tribe, one's blood was deemed lawful. If he was murdered, the murderer would not be held accountable for it. Whosoever wished could take the banished person for a slave. The status of such a banished person was not different from a stone that could be picked up by anyone or thrown away. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, did not fear banishment or the repercussions that would accompany it. After that fateful night, he, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, set off for the cave of Hira again, but Jibril did not appear. It became a custom for Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, to go to the cave at nightfall, but the Jibril did not turn up. Gradually, an unknown aura of sadness and grief began to overcome him. Khadija Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu, in spite of all her efforts, could not alleviate or console him. One night when Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was in the cave of Hira, gloomy, neither asleep nor awake, heard the familiar voice of Jibril utter, O Muhammad P.B.U.H. Thou art the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, of Allah I am Jibril. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, sat up waiting for Jibril to say more, but heard nothing. On his return the next morning, Khadija Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu saw Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, very invigorated. He told her that previous night he had heard the voice of Jibril. He added that he was happy for not having been deprecated before Allah. Afterwards, for 3 years Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, continued to stay at the cave of Hira at nights deep in contemplation till morning. Sometimes he used to hear the voice of Jibril saying, O Muhammad P.B.U.H. Thou art the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, of Allah I am Jibril. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, kept on contemplating about Allah, and every night he kept reciting the verses that had been revealed upon him. This 3 years period has been named as the duration of Fitrat or Fitrat al-Wahi, i.e. the period when the revelation of the surahs, verses, of Holy Quran in the life of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, had stopped. Here it is important to clarify a point often misunderstood by Western scholars. It is often assumed that the Arabic words Nabiwat and Risalat have the same meanings. Both words have been translated into English as prophethood. In reality, a Nabi is a person who by divine knowledge delivers news and tidings to his people. A Rasul on the other hand is the one who conveys the law of Allah to the people through his divine book. Thus it is contended by Arabian scholars that before the appearance of Jibril at Hira, Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, was a Nabi. After the call he became a Rasul since the Holy Quran was being revealed upon him. During Fitrat al-Wahi Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, had experienced self-doubt. He, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, feared that he was no longer approved by Allah. When Surah Al-Duha was revealed, this put his fears to rest. The surah begins as 1. By the glorious morning light. 2. And by the night when it is still. Surah Al-Duha, v1-2. Hence, the two things, which Allah vowed for his Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, are the rising of the sun at dawn and the spreading of darkness at dusk. These two vows bear infinite subtlety, when one recites the above verse. The beginning brings the image of sublime beauty of a vast green land on a charming spring morning, when each bud has blossomed to witness the rise of the sun. Western readers, who do not understand the Arabic language, would translate W8 for the rising of the sun. In the Arabic language, words are impregnated with vast figurative meanings. W8 in Arabic means, assured is the time of dawn when the rays of sun appear and gradually spread in such a way that every corner of earth glows, and radiates the blinding resurgence of the sun's light. 2. And by the night when it is still. Surah Al-Duha, v2. This is the second oath of the surah. Like the first, its metaphorical meanings are quite vast. Again, literal translation of the second oath would be, and by the night when darkness prevails everywhere. But the figurative meanings of this part of the verse, and by the night when it is still, would be like assured is the time when darkness spreads to devour the world and when silence permeating the world is so deep that the slightest of sounds from far away appears very close. Even this translation does not quite convey the complete meanings. When an Arab recites above oath, this brings to life before his very eyes a part of Arabian wilderness. He perceives through his imagination that the desert is in darkness and the sky that is tied over the horizons of earth as an immense tent is saturated with stars. Under such a starry sky, when the desert is immersed in complete darkness, sometimes, a distant sound reaches the ears as if sprung from close quarters. The air is motionless and the atmosphere still. In such wilderness, one is so immersed in solitude that it seems nothing ever existed here since the creation, except oneself and the silent wilderness. The readers may take this as ideas of an image worshipper. But whatever is elaborated upon is in explanation of these two oaths of the surah. In the third verse of the given surah, Allah has addressed the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. 3. The guardian, Lord, hath not forsaken thee, nor is he displeased. Surah Al-Duha, v3. Like the first, this verse also expresses far greater meanings than its literal counterpart. In this verse Allah has replied to the torment arising in the mind of Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace. These words were meant to appease the self-doubt that the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, had naturally felt. The first thing Allah created was the pen. He created the tablet and said to the pen, write. And the pen answered, what shall I write? He said, write my knowledge of my creation till the day of resurrection. The oath by the pen is followed by a second oath, by that which they write, and amongst what the angels write in heaven with lesser pens on lesser tablets is the Holy Quran celestial archetype, as the mother of the book. The two oaths are followed by the divine reassurance. 1. None. By the pen. And by the record. Which, men, write dash. 2. Thou art not. By the grace of thy Lord. Mad or possessed. 3. Nay, verily for thee is a reward unfailing. 4. And thou standest on an exalted standard of character. 5. Soon wilt thou see, and they will see. 6. Which of you is afflicted with madness? 7. Verily it is thy Lord that knoweth best, which, among men, hath strayed from his path. And he knoweth best those who receive true guidance. Surah Al-Qalam, v1-7. 1. By the glorious morning light. 2. And by the night when it is still. 3. Thy guardian Lord hath not forsaken thee, nor is he displeased. 4. And verily the hereafter will be better for thee than the present. 5. And soon will thy guardian Lord give thee that wherewith thou shalt be well pleased. 6. Did he not find thee an orphan and give thee shelter and care? 7. And he found thee wandering, and he gave thee guidance. 8. And he found thee in need, and made thee independent. 9. Therefore, treat not the orphan with harshness. 10. Nor repulse the petitioner unheard. 11. But the bounty of thy Lord rehearse and proclaim. Surah Al-Duha, v1-11. Jibril came to Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, one day on the high ground above Mecca, and struck with his heel the turf of the hillside, whereupon a spring gushed forth from it. He performed the ritual of ablution to show Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, how to purify himself for worship, and the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, followed his example. He then showed him the postures and movements of the prayer, the standing, the inclining, the prostrating, and the sitting, with the repeated magnification, that is, the words Allahu Akbar, Allah is most great, and the final greeting as, Salamu alaikum. Muhammad, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, returned to his house, and taught Qadiya Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu all that he had learnt, and they prayed together. The religion was now established on the basis of the ritual purification and prayer. Prophets, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, friend Abu Bakr Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu of the clan of Taim and Ali Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu were the first to respond to his call. Many responses took place through Abu Bakr Razi Allah Ta'ala Anhu. The others to respond to the call were a man of Zara, Abdu Amr, the son of a distant relative of the Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, S mother, and Abu Ubaidah the son of Al-Jarrah of the Bani al-Harith. Amongst the most striking features of the revelation were the two divine names Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Name Ar-Rahman refers to the very essence or root of mercy, that is, to the infinite beneficence or goodness of Allah, and the Holy Quran expressly makes it an equivalent of Allah. His are the names most beautiful. Ar-Rahman is an attribute applicable to all creation, non-believers, and believers, while Ar-Rahim is the quality specially attributable to all Muslim believers.